The Horror from the Vault by Isaac, I'm sorry for butchering this name, Boissoneau. Part 1. The following conversations, audio recordings, and testimonies all pertain to the incident that occurred from October 1st to November 2nd in the Alden County National Reserve and its outlying towns, Alden and Greenvale. The first part contains a series of emails between researchers Michael Hayes and Richard Harris. From @hayesresearch.gmail.com to Richard Harris at Alden National Research. Subject: Important find. Richie. I know we haven't spoken in a long time and that you need your space, but earlier today, while me and my crew were digging for new mineral samples, we stumbled upon something huge. Get back to me as soon as you can. Michael. From Richard Harris at Alden National Research to @hayesresearch.gmail.com. Subject: What is it? Despite the creeping feeling that you're trying to get me to respond, I'll bite. What did you find? Oh, and what do you mean by new mineral samples? What happened to the old mineral samples? From @hayesresearch.gmail.com to Richard Harris at Alden National Research. Subject: The Vault. Richie, what happened to the old samples isn't anything to worry about right now. We've got bigger things to discuss. As I had said in my previous email, me and my crew, that is to say, a crew of 20 bored college grads, were digging up at the base of the tallest mountain in the park, can't remember its name, when we found the entrance to the vault. Most of the kids were interested in the view, which was, granted, a very nice one. But some of the kids were actually trying to earn their credit for a change, and it was this little group who called me over, rather suddenly, just as I was about to call it a day. Their voices were so loud, and their collective tone was both excited and frightened. I leaped from my chair and ran past a little cluster of trees to where they were. I found them all crowded around something that I couldn't make out until I was close enough, but when I saw what it was, I understood their reactions. The ground had collapsed where they had been digging, the loose soil falling away into a hole that had appeared out of nowhere. So I pushed past the whispering, frightened students and looked down, trying to see if someone had fallen in, hoping that no one had. We're on a shoestring budget as it is, without having to deal with a lawsuit. But I didn't see some deep, dark pit. I saw a set of stairs descending down into the darkness. A faint rush of cold air hit me when I leaned in for a closer look, and I backed away. I've heard stories about toxic spores found in tombs beneath the pyramids, so I went to my tent and retrieved my bandana, which I tied around my face, as well as my gloves, which I put on. I mean, I just had to see what was down there. I had to. I returned to find that some of the kids were already starting toward the stairs. I warned them off in my best stern teacher voice, and made sure that they had some form of protection as well as lights. I swear I must be the only one who thinks these things through. I had one of the kids, a girl by the name of Lori Summers, go tell the others what we had found and what we intended to do, and when she came back we started our exploration. The stairs led further down than I had anticipated. The descent halted only by a few landings, where we stopped and talked among each other. Or, rather, the kids talked. I was too busy examining the floor, walls, and ceiling. And what I found is pretty damn strange. The material looked like obsidian. Now, I'm not an expert in archaeology, but I've never heard of a temple made of obsidian. Maybe you could share some of that knowledge with me? The stairs ended after a bit. We found ourselves in an antechamber. It was colder than a frost giant's scrote down there, but the air was so still, stagnant even. Probably a good thing I wore my mask and gloves, eh? Anyway, from the antechamber we emerged into a short tunnel that led to a surprisingly spacious chamber. Everything was so dark that our flashlights did less than we'd hoped. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. As it turned out, there were 5 chambers in total. Just 5. which strikes me as more than a bit weird. But believe me, it got weirder from there. You see, the first 4 rooms held nothing. No dust, no furniture, no bodies, and no signs of animal life. I didn't even see a single spider or cobweb while I was down there. But the 5th room was different. The 5th room had something in it. I honestly have no idea what the hell it is. At first glance, I thought it was a sarcophagus of some kind, due to its shape. But when I got closer, I saw this wasn't the case at all. It had a rudimentary face and body etched into it. But unlike the mummies' tombs that I've seen, the overall picture didn't add up to anything human. I honestly can't really describe what was wrong with it. But everything about it looked off, despite how it looked from a distance. The coffin is also made of metal, though. I'll need to run a few tests to determine just what type of metal it is. We brought it back here and we've been setting up the necessary equipment. I think that this one will give us a bit more trouble than the usual fare. Mostly because I can't see any way into the damn thing. I feel like one of those handsome adventurous scientists you'd see in a B-movie, looking over something new and interesting, waiting with bated breath to see what will come of this new find. It's so interesting. Maybe we can talk more in person, say, over dinner? Michael. From hayesresearch.gmail.com to Richard Harris at Alden National Research. Subject, sorry. Sorry I missed dinner. Work at the lab has yielded some unforeseen results, and I and most of my team have been feeling under the weather. I'm glad the kids let my team do the rest of the work. Don't think that I could stand to hear them whining about how much their heads hurt, or how sick they've been feeling. I feel like crap in the usual flu-type way, but I haven't stopped working on opening that damned coffin, or whatever it really is. It seems as though we've stumbled across something new. How many of us get to say that? So, yes, my health is worth it. The samples, the metal from the coffin, and the stone from the chamber came back yesterday. I can safely say that I have never seen anything like it. As it turns out, the stone is obsidian in appearance only. It was apparently filled with microscopic bands of frozen liquid, which has yet to yield a match to any known chemical compound, and I swear this is true. It's warm, not room temperature. It's consistently stayed at 37 degrees Celsius. And the metal? Every one of our tests has come up negative. Every single one. It looks and feels like metal, but it isn't. I don't have any idea what this is. This could be big, Richie. Really big. This last email wasn't ever sent, but it was found as a saved draft on Mr. Hayes' computer. From @hayesresearch.gmail.com to Richard Harris at Alden National Research. Subject, blank. Have you ever had a dream that was so bad you woke up in tears? I did last night. It was so awful, so real. At first I thought I was on a seashore, but the ground was warm and moist beneath my feet, and when I looked down, I saw that instead of sand, there were pores and tiny hairs and purple veins. I looked at the sea and saw nothing that looked like water, something that looked like water, but was stagnant and stank like an infected cut. And above me I saw a dark, cloudless red sky without stars or moon. It was so real. I didn't think I was going to wake up. Today, at the lab, everyone went about their business without talking. I knew that something was wrong. Something was hanging over everyone's heads like a guillotine waiting to fall. Some of my colleagues are irritable today. Many smell like they haven't washed, and all have bags under their eyes. They're not listless, though. If anything, they're more intent on their work than they usually are. Most of them aren't even talking to each other. We've decided to open the coffin using strong acids to weaken the metal, or whatever it is, before taking a saw to it. We'll have it open in a few hours, and then we can all rest. The following is a transcription of the testimony of Police Officer Edmund Moore, who was called in to investigate the research facility after 2 weeks of no outside contact. Questioning Officer, QO. It is November 7th, and I am here with the witness. State your name and badge number for the record, sir. Edmund Moore. Moore. Officer Edmund Thomas Moore. My badge number is... Hold on. 09-02453. QO. Alright, you may proceed with your testimony. Oh, can I? Can I really? It's only been 3 hours since we started. You FBI agents are exactly as uptight about rules as the movies say. Either that or you're unbelievably shitty at figuring out how our recorders work. The testimony, Officer Moore. What? Is this newfangled computer thing too much for you to handle? You like it, you look like you're, what, 20? 21? How the hell do you not know how to work a computer? The testimony, Officer Moore. I have all day. Obviously. Officer Moore! Alright, just give me a minute. Officer Moore. Do not rush me. You weren't there, kid. You didn't see it, so with all due respect, shut the fuck up and give me a damn minute. Testimony begins after a minute has passed. Alright. I was called in on October 10th. I'd been anticipating some time alone with my wife, so I was a bit ticked when I got the call. I wanted to tell them to get another officer, but the recent flooding in Alden had left the station understaffed and stretched pretty thin. What my little town lacks in population, it makes up for in overzealous whining. I cannot count the times I have been called out because some old lady thought she saw a wolf or a bear or Bigfoot. Despite their pleading, I wanted to let them handle it, but Andrea, that's my wife, told me to go. So that was that. Now, my little town lies farther from the National Reserve. Alden is the town closest to it. But some of that wilderness reaches us and makes it as pretty as a postcard. So we're constantly ranked pretty high up on the lists of prettiest towns, right next to some in Vermont and Maine. I used to agree with popular opinion on that. Summers out there were warm and full of every shade of green you could think of. The falls were cozy, and the local kids made a hell of a lot of profit from leaf raking. The winters sucked, though. But when do they ever not? I'm stalling. Sorry. It was early in October, so the cold was creeping in and the leaves were clogging the gutter. It had rained all that week, and all the weather reports were saying that it'd keep raining. It did rain a bit on the way to the lab, but it cleared up pretty quick. New England weather and all that. The lab was a big, 4-story, concrete and metal monstrosity that looked out of place in all that wilderness. Like a scar, almost. I got out of the car and noticed that the lights were still on. I went up to the door, hoping that all the people were just too deep in their work to talk to the outside world. But I got no response no matter what I did. So I called in our resident lockpick, who overcharged me before he did his job, and went in. I looked around, gave myself a tour of the facility, and saw that something wasn't quite right from the moment I stepped foot in there. It was far too quiet, and there were no sounds except the pattering of rain on the roof. More signs started appearing as I worked my way through the place. A kitchen full of spoiled food, a spilled cup of coffee near the stairway to the 3rd floor that was feeding a mouse, an upended wastebasket near a bathroom, and a whole lot of open doors. They were little things, but each one put an extra weight on my mind. But I wasn't scared, just unnerved. And then I got to the 4th and final floor. I was walking down the hall when I felt a draft through one of the open doors. I looked in, and I saw that the largest window in the room had been shattered. I went in to investigate, and immediately noticed that there were no trees near the window that were high enough to reach it. and there were no debris on the floor and no glass on the inside, and the outer edges of the window frame were bent and cracked. And that was what scared you? So it finally talks, and no, it wasn't. It was what I found, lying in a heap off to the side, away from the window. What did you find? Clothes. A big pile of wet clothing just lying there, soaking up the rain. That was when I started to get scared. It was an image that just struck me as unnatural. I rummaged through them and found the wallets and jewelry and money all intact too. So whatever it wasn't a robbery. Was there any blood? None. The clothes were ripped, but that was it. At this point, I was sufficiently ready to call in backup, so I went out of the room to see if I could get a better signal outside. And I was about halfway to the stairs when I saw a shadow on the wall opposite me. I turned around, and there she was, standing in the doorway, dirty and mad, like a rabid dog. The instant she saw me, she bolted. I decided to err on the side of caution and call in backup. I didn't follow her. The look in her eyes was warning enough, but I did take a look at the room where she had come from. The room had probably been one of the swankier labs, but everything, all the equipment, the beakers and the chemicals in them, were smashed and shattered. And at the center of the room was a tall, metal thing. It looked like a coffin. There were way too many sides, and the metal bulged out in weird ways. I went up to get a closer look, and I saw that the front, at least I think it was the front, was decorated with some kind of ghoul or monster, one whose face was gone. Could you elaborate? There was a hole where the face used to be. It was like something had punched through it, but the edges of the metal were bent outwards. Just for the record, do you have any theories as to what might have been in that coffin? Even after what's happened, I still don't know, and I don't want to know. Leave it at that. And the woman? We later found out her name was Lori Summers, but it took some doing, considering that she was far too violent to let its fingerprint her. We eventually got lucky and another officer managed to get some hair from her as she was trying to tear hers out. She didn't really tell us anything that we thought was important. When I asked her what happened to her colleagues, she only said they were taken. End of part 1.